You're listening to a free audio download from Venue Cymru's International Concert Series. Welcome to the March edition of pre-concert interviews from Venue Cymru. I'm Kristina Leong, and this month Nick Hardisty and I caught up with violinist Jack Liebeck and conductor Christophe Mangou before they performed a concert of French masterpieces with the BBC National Orchestra of Wales. How do you juggle your time between rehearsing, learning music and seeing friends and family? Is that difficult?
Me first? Yes, it is difficult. It's not just that. There's also all the admin stuff that goes on with all our work, and then getting home to a pile of post that needs answering, and all the mundane things in life that if you're at home every day you can just do carefully, and getting home to the letters saying we will cut you off if you don't pay for this, things like that, and then that all often has to take precedence as well. You have to just get on with that stuff because life has to be sorted out. So there's that stuff, and then there's the friends and family, especially family, who immediately say, right, we haven't seen you for 3 weeks, are we going to come and show your face or something like that? So it's tough. And then practicing in between is I kind of maintain a month or two glance ahead in my diary to see what I've got to be practicing for now, what I need to be starting to touch for a month's time, and what I need to get out of my pile of music for 2 months' time. And so there's this kind of method. And I have a nightmare as well, 1 month before a concert, that I go on stage and I can't play anything. So that also it's very useful, actually.
So how long would you say you spend away from home in a year?
It's difficult. Probably it's difficult. Because sometimes if I have a month of working in the UK, then I'll be away for 1 night and home for 2, and then away for 2 nights, and so probably away 4 or 5 months of the year, something like that, on average. I don't know.
Okay. Christophe, how about you?
Yeah, perhaps I'm a little bit more lucky than you because as I am a conductor, I don't need instrument to practice. I mean, I can. What I do most of the time is to work my scores in the train, in the metro, which is easier, of course. If you have an instrument, you can do that. You cannot do that. Sorry. So I try to do this to have more time for my family and my friends at home. And well, this is the same as Jack. We have so many things to not only learning the music and the scores, but a lot of things to manage. So, yes.
I was wondered which violinists perhaps you take as inspiration. Why those?
Well, I probably look backwards in time to the old greats of Milstein and Heifetz and people like that. I think they came from an era of sort of freedom and in playing anyway, freedom and sort of general. They just did how they felt, it was much more natural to them rather than sort of like I think studying necessarily.
Yeah.
I think the performance practice aspect of music has come in very much in the last sort of half a century, where people are sort of saying, oh, well, this is the way it's done, and you've got to look back to how they played it in those days, whereas they just saw the notes and when played, and they often to really you can always tell who's playing, and that's the lovely thing.
How about you, Christophe, with conductors?
Yeah, there are of course plenty, but if I would have to say one person, it would be Yuri Temerkanov, who is a Russian conductor. And because for me it's absolutely somebody who understood exactly why he's in front of an orchestra and what for, which is not always the case. I mean, he knows exactly which kind of orchestra he has in front of him, and he really reacts the way that now I think we should do. So, and also his gestural is so natural and so supple. So I just love it.
Yeah. Kristina?
Well, both of you, how much control do you have over your musical output, recordings and CDs and concerts?
You first?
Well, it depends, of course, on orchestras and But for this tour, for example, the orchestra gave me the concertos and the overtures, and I had to choose the symphonies.
Okay.
Yeah, regarding to the rest of the program, so that was interesting. And this is like that most of the time, I think. For example, with the Orchestre National d'Île-de-France that I'm going to conduct in 1 month, it's the same. They had some ideas, so they said, okay, you let's do this, and please choose another piece. So that's it. And for the recordings, it's a little bit more complicated. I mean, most of the time they impose. They say we would like to do this.
Okay. And what about you, Jack?
Well, it's a mixture of things. For instance, this is the first time I'm playing with the National Orchestra of Wales. So essentially, they said to me, "Would you play Sibelius and Chausson and Saint-Saëns?" and of which I love all the pieces, so I said absolutely. So it depends very much on the relationship you have with the orchestra. So when you will know an orchestra really well, you can say, how about, when you're confident that they're going to ask you back as well, you can say, how about this repertoire next year or the season after or something, and then they can either say, oh, we just had it, or they don't really want it, or great, whatever. But it's very much a two ways of doing it. I mean, when I'm doing recitals, which is pretty much the rest of half of what I do, I have control over what I'm playing most of the time. I mean, occasionally you'll go to somewhere and they'll say, "Oh, we can't have that piece because it's just been played last season" or something like that. But generally, I have control. And with the recordings, with my solo recordings, I have full control over what I'm recording. So I just have to make a good suggestion, and then hopefully they'll say yes. They occasionally say, but generally I get to do what I'd like to do.
Well, that's good. Christophe, today's programme is full of French music. As a Frenchman yourself, do you feel you have more of a connection with this music?
Than me, you mean?
Than with other programs, perhaps. Yes, and you're right to say feel, because I feel when I work on French music that I am quite linked with this music more than German music, but it's only a feel. I don't have really. I wouldn't be able to explain really the reasons, etc. But yes, working on the Franck Symphony or Chausson, or it's. I'm a little bit closer to this music than, for example, Mendelssohn Symphony that we played yesterday. And of course I love this music too, but it takes me a little bit more time to get in it. So that's it. But about this program of French music today, I find very interesting the fact that we have very different music anyway. We have Berlioz and Saint-Saëns, who are quite, we would say, classical French music in the 19th century, and Franck and Chausson are between French tradition and German tradition and Wagner. They are a lot inspired of Wagner music. We can feel it, for example, at the very beginning of the Chausson. There are some harmonic things which are absolutely... Wagner could have composed that. So that's interesting to have Saint-Saëns, which is a real classic French, almost Spanish music. Berlioz, who is really French, I mean, and Franck and Chausson a little bit apart. And I find very very interesting to put these together in the same program.
Jack, you began touring at the age of 11, I think. Was that difficult for you?
Well, I mean, I made my sort of first performance when I was 11, but I actually sort of started touring when I was 14 or 15. That was when I really started doing things like that. And it was difficult. It was difficult to keep up with friends and do my exams and things like that. I remember having my school. I went to the Purcell School of Music, and they were incredibly understanding about letting me have time off. And I remember I sort of had time off before my GCSEs, and I immediately flew the day after my GCSEs to do a tour of Taiwan. So it was so it was just the bare minimum. They let me get away with the bare minimum. It didn't mean I had a bad education, but it just meant that you know, they knew that in the end, for what I was aiming for and everything, getting a GCSE and whatever is not the most important thing. And I suppose I had to take those opportunities when I could. You can always go and do your GCSEs again at a later time, but you can't necessarily go and do concert tours that you've been offered. So, but it was interesting. It was difficult to, you know, maintain. I think as well, you know, the pressure of all that stuff is quite a lot to take on when you're that young.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's known that boys mature a bit later than girls and all that sort of thing as well. So there's, you know, it was tough. I mean, I played here in London. I was thinking back in 15 years ago, the last time actually. I don't know if it was this hall. I think it was a hall down the road or something, a theatre. But it was 1996 or something. So that was the first time. Yeah.